Insurance is not sold, it's a story told. I know final expense is a weird thing to talk about, especially to someone that looks like me. Again, I'm face to face, right? Especially to a 26-year-old kid and you're 75. I know it's weird to talk about, Mary, especially to someone that looks like me. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I've helped thousands of people do things just like this. If you spend the next 15, 20 minutes with me, you'll never have to worry about this again. Does that sound fair?
Absolutely.
It's not a person in the world that won't listen to what you're saying if you say it correctly.
If you want to drive and if you want to be successful. Welcome to VIPAs, the game plan call.
We have a very, very special guest who is it's taken a while to sort of get this guest to come and speak to us, but we are blessed to be able to have him and have his time as well. We have Dr. Matthew Murray. Dr. Matthew Murray, thank you very much for joining us today, sir. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm better than I deserve to be, but not as great as I'd like to be, man. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm blessed and unstoppable. I can't complain.
Love it.
Um, I want to give a little bit of background to everybody on, what you've been able to, accomplish in the space before we sort of get into the Q&A here and get people a little bit of knowledge and what they can do to better their processes within the business. But Dr. Matthew Murray, between us, has had an extensive history in the insurance industry. He's, been in the business for nearly a decade. So he's helped build three massive sales organizations, the most notable being Innovative Financial Group, where he served as the director of sales and marketing. So in that field, he revolutionized lead processes through CRM automation, and his, sort of innate ability to recruit by never recruiting. Keep in mind, they sold to Humana, the insurance company, for $100 million in August of 2022. So his forward, based off of what we know, his forward thinking processes, delves into the mindset of the client from their point of view to understand the psychology of marketing, reverse engineering the client experience from lead to client to referral. He was one of the first people in the country to run a successful Facebook campaigns for final expense and Medicare. So he helped digitize the landscape of insurance. Dr. Murray has also helped build a few insurance products that agents can use today. And he is currently working on his final insurance product, which is set to release. I believe it was in 2025 or 2026, right? So
I'm hoping for late 2025, but
yes,
insurance just takes a little bit longer, so we're probably looking at early 2026 or mid 2026.
yes, yes. Word around town to your master of ceremonies, dad jokes, and rebuttals. So is that all true?
Most of those things are true, but I couldn't have wrote it better myself. I appreciate all those nice things you said about me, man. That's really nice
Of
to say.
course. I studied, man. I had to. Yeah,
Yeah,
they have no idea how hard I had to work to get you on this call, man.
yeah. They say the fortune's in the follow-up, right? And
Yeah,
most insurance agents they call one time, they try to close it, they don't do with it, and they never follow up. And I'll say that you've definitely followed up with me over probably what 7 or 8 times, trying to make sure. And it seems that over the last several months I've been traveling and doing certain things. We've never been able to make it work, but I really appreciate you always following up with me and doing that. So I appreciate the heck out of that, man.
of course, of course. I when we first got into this business, you were like one of the first people that we spoke with, and like having your sort of insight was truly a blessing, and it really set the precedent for like how our organization was going to sort of go about things when it came to sort of performing here as a whole. So with that being said, it's kind of crazy because I manifested you in a sense. So I like at the beginning in December, I like had a whole board of like people that I had put together for the year of like what speakers we need to have based off of, like what the agents kind of need right now. And like you were on that sort of hit list per se. So it's kind of crazy how life imitates art. But regardless though, thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, before we get started here, I kind of want to give people a little bit of background on like, your experience coming to the industry. Because you've been in the business since you were what, 25, right? And you are how old now? Or how young, I
30,
should say?
35. Yeah.
35. So 10 years, so just about a decade, right?
Yeah.
So take us back to the beginning. Like what drew you into the insurance industry almost a decade ago now? And then what were some of the first key lessons you learned in those early years that still inform your sort of approach today?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. I think everybody's start in the insurance business is probably similar. Um, I think mine's pretty similar to everybody. I don't think anybody that I know of made a prayer at night saying, Father God, in the name of Jesus, I'd like to sell insurance on a commission only basis, right? I don't think anybody's made that prayer yet. Could be weird. I didn't do that one either. I got recruited, right? Saw an opportunity. I was a finance manager. And for those that don't know what finance is, it's Southern for finance. I'm from LA or Lower Arkansas. I'm gonna tell you as many jokes as I can. Whenever I'm given a chance to speak, I'm gonna tell as many jokes as I can. So, with my accent, LA, I'm from Lower Arkansas. I talk a little bit funny, but I got fired from my job as a finance manager because someone broke into my office 3 times or 2 times in a week, and they fired me for negligence. Now, I'm somebody that dropped out of high school 3 times who never went to a formal college. And so, being a finance manager, that was the best job I've ever had. I wasn't going to leave at all. Why would I steal $200 in petty cash? But they needed a scapegoat and they needed to make sure that someone got the blame, and it was me. So I heard about this thing with insurance and old people, final expense. I called my friend and I said, "Hey, I'm coming to work on Monday." I sat in front of a room with about 50 people, and I was sat front row, and I watched a guy that made $1 million a year. I don't know if he did or not, right? But $1 million a year, walk and talk, and he had a presentation he was showing, and it was a system about a business. And it was about final expense insurance, and I don't really remember too much of all the slides, right? But what I do remember is this: if you collect a check, physical check, blah blah blah, commission percent, we're going to pay you $315. And then he went on to the next slide, and he went on to the next slide, and he went to the next slide. And after about a while, I'm kind of tilting my head like this, like a confused dog. I raised my hand, and I said, "Hey, man, can you rewind the tape like 3 minutes? I want to go back to the part where we get paid." Because again, I don't have an income at this point. You know, I'm fired. I have nothing to do. I want to go back to the part where we get paid. He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "So you're telling me I can click a $50 check, client, for this final expense thing, and you're going to pay me $315?" He was like, "Yep." I said, "I have 3 questions, 3 follow-up questions for you. Is this legal? How many times can I do it in a day? And where the hell do I get my license?" Right? And he said, "It's perfectly legal as long as you have your license. You got to study, pass a test, go through contracting, and you can do as many times as you want."
Mhm.
Again, I said confused, "Can I pass my test tomorrow and get my license?"
Hmm.
And in the state of South Carolina, you don't have to take a study exam or anything like that. He said, "You can. You should probably study." And I said, "Well, from what I know, nobody asks the doctor what he made on his final exam when they go to the doctor. All they know is doctor,
Mhm.
right?" I said, "So if I get my license, it doesn't matter if I make a 70, 71, or 100. All the client knows is I am a licensed insurance agent and I can talk about the things that we could talk about." He said, "That's exactly correct." So I took a test on Tuesday. I passed with a 71. Thank the Lord.
Mhm.
I started doing my contracting. It was in Columbia, South Carolina. So I was in the downtown office. I handed in my paperwork immediately, and I got contracted by Thursday. And on Friday, I was out in the field. Now, I know the majority of people here are on the phone, but I was in the field, and they told me about these things called leads. Does anybody know what a lead is? You know what a lead is?
I like to hope so.
Like to hope so. Just for general purpose, explain it to me or explain to anybody what a lead is, right?
It's just someone who has basically found some sort of intent in wanting to better themselves or make a,
They're semi-interested in what they saw
yes.
about what you have to offer, and then your job is to follow up with that and then get it to them, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, you guys are idiots. Like, you're gonna give me people that want to buy this stuff? This is the best job in the world, right? Now, what Elite is not is what I got, right? What I got was an Excel spreadsheet with a name and an address. Okay. And so I found myself walking with an Excel spreadsheet down the street, just house by house by house, because it was the mailing list of people that we'd send direct mail to.
Mhm.
But I'll never forget, I was so excited because I was like, you're going to pay me money to go get this incredible thing called final expense insurance to these senior citizens that want to buy it. It was great. I knocked on the first door. The lady answered. I'll never forget her. She thought I was a policeman because I dressed in a suit. And she answered, and I said, "You filled out a card about insurance." And I held the Excel spreadsheet up to her. And she goes, "No, I didn't." And I said, "The only reason I'm here is because you did. Your name's at the top of my list. I'm supposed to see you." And she goes, "Well, come on in." So I sat down with her. I got real close. And I said, "Minnie McKeever, I don't know anything about what I'm doing. But what I can tell you from my training on Monday is if you give me a $50 check right now, I get paid." I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. What I said was, I don't know a whole lot about what I'm doing, but if you give me a $50 check right now, I can get you exactly, I did the math, $10,138 worth of insurance. And this is before a lot of the e-apps, right? I was doing all paper. I had what's called a conditional receipt, if you know what that is, meaning the person's applied for the coverage, they said their level, and they gave me their check, right? And I didn't have a scissors, so I kind of licked it. You know what I'm talking about? When you have to tear a piece of paper, but you had to kind of lick it and then pull it. I did that. And she said, "Dead ass?" I said, "Dead ass. How much coverage you can get?" And she wrote me a check for $50 that day. And I was like, "This is the greatest thing of all time." I knocked on 6 doors that day, and 4 people were home. I made 4 sales. And next Monday, to further this joke or truth that happened, we go to the next meeting. Again, most of the people were there because it was a recruiting event, right? I found out later. But the guy started talking again. He's doing the same presentation, and he got past the point to where $50, he goes $315, and I raised my hand again like this. He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "When do we get paid?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I heard about this last week. I got my insurance license. I got 4 checks here for $50 each. By my calculations, you owe me $1,260. And he said, "You made 4 sales? And why are they only for $50 each?" And I said, "You didn't tell me any different. You just told me it's a $50 check." And he said, "Did you send this to the home office?" And I said, "You didn't say shit about a home office yet, man. You just told me to collect the check." So then I had to learn. I had to send it to a home office and overnight the checks and all that stuff. And he said, "You want to teach the class?" I said, "Sure. It's the greatest job of all time." So that's how I got started in the insurance business, right? Which probably is the hardest way to do so,
Mhm.
right?
No
I
doubt.
didn't I didn't really have a system and process like you guys have. I didn't have a
Yeah.
system and process where I could plug into something,
Yeah.
um, you know, get some leads, plug them into a CRM that's, automating a lot of things, and having pre-booked appointments. None of that at
Mhm.
all. Didn't have any of that. And it was an interesting time. And one thing the guy told me that stuck out for me for the rest of my career was the one that controls the marketing controls the market,
Mhm.
which means learn about leads and you'll never go hungry. So I started learning about leads and Facebook ads and direct mail and all these different things. And I'm a personable guy, meaning I like to sit down face to face with people. I like that human connection, right? Um, and I know the majority of people here, if not all, everybody here is telesales, right?
Mhm.
It's not that I can't do telesales. I think I probably could and probably should.
Mhm.
But for me, I just like sitting down with senior citizens in their home and helping them out. It just goes a little bit of a longer way. You know what I mean? For me,
Yeah.
it's more of I'm an old soul.
Mhm.
And I think that with age comes wisdom,
Mhm.
and you only realize it the older you get. And
Hmm.
so if you haven't aged and you don't have that wisdom, you get around that wisdom.
Hmm.
And so when you're around senior citizens, whether they're impoverished people or not, they have wise words they say in passing. You just have to
Hmm.
realize that they're giving it to you for free.
Hmm.
And that's why I like sitting down with people.
Hmm. And that's not something you can pay for either. The knowledge is not something, that kind of insight is not something that you can just put a dollar amount on at all. Right? It's very humble of you, though. Very humble of you, especially, trying to, we kind of call it, don't take this with a grain of salt, but we call it the caveman approach, where you have like the lead sheets, and then you got to have your own cell phone, and you're punching the numbers in the cell phone. Even that, right? We're not door to door, but even that in itself is it's still sort of caveman in that regard. But no, it's definitely humble of you, going and you're still doing that to this day. You're still on the sales floor with your team. You're still selling and you're going in doing a lot of in-homes, correct?
So my path has changed drastically over the last 10 years, right? So
Yeah.
now I've done, like I said, built products and helped a lot of the stuff that's being used today, CRMs and automations. I've helped build a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my time now is spent with agents,
Mm-hmm.
agency owners, and insurance companies. But I tell every one of them that I still like to service clients in the field and go make new sales. So still on Thursdays and Fridays, I'll still go out there and either door knock or have preset appointments for me,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a skill set that's the hardest thing that you can do. And so once you've done that, everything becomes easier. And so whenever I'm traversing through life, I go something about the hardest way because then everything else becomes a breeze.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make
No,
sense?
no, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, because then at that point, if you have the will to be able to like knock doors in the heat of the weather or the cold or whatever it may be, like it's definitely humbling. And then getting on the phone, that's a luxury, right? You see all these solar cats, right? That's their bread and butter,
Hmm.
right? But that's when they do that, which is the hardest thing, right? You see a lot of those folks who are getting into our business from solar, like they just immediately just pop off because of the fact that they've already been to war. They know what that's like, right? In the worst way as well. Honestly, in the best way too, in its own, unique sort of frame. Now, you have a very key philosophy that you follow, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because you specialize solely in, final expense. Now, I think the theme of today's conversation is going to be taking sort of like a deep dive into, you know, your history and marketing and things of that regard. But, you know, you sort of give everyone more so the insight as like what your philosophy is and like how it can sort of bridge the gap between agents and clients and things that regard and make that relationship a whole lot better across the board. So, did you want to just touch on that a little bit and then we can sort of proceed from there?
Yeah, for sure. So if you remember my story, the big thing that I was focused on was how much I was going to get paid,
Right.
right? And I think a lot of people get in this business and should get in this business because you want to get paid. You want to get paid good money, right? There's no
Right.
point in working without getting paid.
Right.
For sure. But there's at some point where things start to change for you in your brain, when you're doing this. And I think it comes with time, or it comes with things happening drastically in your business. Maybe your first death claim, right? For me, it was something that happened to me where final expense became more of a personal thing. And I'm going to share a
Mhm.
personal story with everybody. Um, and just so everybody knows, um, insurance is not sold, it's a story told. I'm going to say that again. Insurance isn't sold, it's a story told. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story. My own uncle, who was 55 years of age, not a very old guy, right? When I was 26 years old, maybe about a year into my final expense career, he was up the street from me. I knew him really well. Um, we didn't talk much. He's my uncle, right? We got a call one day and said, "You should drive up to Charlotte, North Carolina. We think your uncle's passed away." And my mother and I drove to Charlotte, North Carolina with my younger brother, and we went to a place, and what we saw was a box with a large plastic bag full of cremation remains. and it said possibly his name. And they said to me, "Is this your uncle? Is this your brother?" To my mother. I can't tell you the confusion and the anger that came out of me from that. If he had had a plan in place, something saying who to contact, what I want done, those things, we could have given him a proper burial. Instead, what happened was he passed away. They couldn't identify, um, who to contact or anybody that was around him. He didn't really have any of those documents in place, and so nobody called anybody. And for after 30 days, they just cremated the body. They eventually found something that led him to my mom that made us go out to go see him, but it was too late. And that's when I started taking filing expense very seriously. Of, filing expense is a small whole life policy designed to take care of a burial or cremation, right? Not not that sexy. A lot of times people it's just insurance for agents. Um, it's peace of mind for the client. It's something that the client will buy but never use. Okay. Everything else in life you can buy and use immediately almost. You can buy a car, use it. You can buy a hammock and use it. An insurance policy is something, a final expense policy is something the client's going to buy and they're never going to see it. It's only for their beneficiary. But final expense is a little bit deeper than that. It's a plan of what to do when that person passes away. And I'm going to give everybody my power line, whether they want it or not. Hopefully someone writes this down because again, age becomes wisdom. Is how do I say this? How do I say this? I'm gonna get lost here for a second because
Mm.
it escapes me sometimes. Let me get back to that. I'm
Mm.
gonna get back to that. I
Mhm.
don't think people are ready for that one, but um, it's a plan that's in place. I'll give you the power line. I know final expense is a weird thing to talk about, especially to someone that looks like me. Again, I'm face to face, right? Especially to a 26-year-old kid and you're 75. I know it's weird to talk about, Mary, especially to someone that looks like me. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I've helped thousands of people do things just like this. If you spend the next 15, 20 minutes with me, you'll never have to worry about this again. Does that sound fair?
Absolutely.
It's not a person in the world that won't listen to what you're saying if you say it correctly and go, that's actually very fair. But you have to take it very seriously and mean it,
Yeah.
right? The
Right.
important part is you have to mean it. It's a lot of times, you know, in the phone or over the phone or in the field, we kind of follow the script, right? We have a
Mm-hmm.
thing that we're trying to navigate through, right? And we're trying to stay on track. Our clients are humans.
Hmm.
They're just people. And they're just confused about this stuff as we are. You hold your license, right? You know more about this stuff indefinitely than they do because you have your license and
Hmm.
you should take it very seriously.
No doubt.
And when it comes to final expense particularly, you're helping that person make sure that when they pass away, their family doesn't have to worry about anything. And you should
Hmm.
take that very seriously.
No doubt.
And when you're talking to somebody, you should take it very seriously.
Yeah.
Because what if you do it wrong?
Yeah.
What if you screw up? What if you're the last person? Hear me out. What if you're the last person that they talked to about their insurance and they didn't get it because of you? Because you didn't take it that seriously? Because it was just another call, just another lead. You know, I have no problem saying this. I'm a big Christian man, a big believer in Jesus, and they're all God's people. They're people. You know what I mean? And people are going to pass away. The older you get, the more you realize it. And so the people that we're serving have gotten closer to death at all times. Like they're indefinitely getting closer to the inevitable. So we're dealing with a possible inevitable. which is a weird string of words. The possible, inevitable. Makes
Mm.
sense. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just possible when,
Yeah.
you know. And we're dealing with people that need help. They're impoverished people.
Hmm.
Impoverished meaning made poor.
Yeah.
Social Security, disability. They're not making a whole lot of money, man.
Yeah.
They're not. Sometimes they're breaking pills in half because they can't pay for it, you know. And we sit here sometimes talk about how much money we're making. I think these people don't give two shits about that, man.
Mm.
They don't. They just want to make sure that when they pass away, that their family doesn't get into financial turmoil, or that
Mhm.
what they want done gets done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No doubt. No
Super
doubt.
powerful stuff. So it's just
Yeah.
it's what I. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox for a second. Let me cool down for a little bit. Any
No, no,
questions on that?
this is important. We say this too, like, you haven't really experienced the life of being an agent until you filed your first death claim. Like you have yet to be, you're just a foot in the door until you have been able to experience what it's like to lose an actual client. And I mean, first of all, I want to say this too, God rest your uncle. So my condolences. I can't imagine that to be easy, but I can also say that that has set the precedent in some regard, I can imagine, to, contributing to your overall success within the business and, being able to teach yourself of that mind frame of going from, you know, uh, just trying to collect a check to making something that's a little bit more personal, right? With the client. Um, so, and then this is the biggest thing, Dr. Matthew. It's like this is something that, like, I've always said this, like, even to our organization. It's like we say this all the time. You can't teach. It's very tough to teach. I say this almost every call. Like, care, respect, and understanding. It's so hard to teach that to an agent. But, like, how do you coach agents or leaders to, like, internalize empathy and client first thinking without it becoming a sort of rehearsed tactic or losing authenticity in
Ask
your
that question again. It's a good question. I'm gonna make sure I understand
so
it correctly.
yeah, no doubt, because, like, it's rooted in, like, teaching someone basically how to care. But, like, how the verbiage is, how do you coach agents or leaders to internalize empathy and client first thinking without it becoming a rehearsed tactic or losing authenticity?
Got it. I'm going to take you back to the time where I worked for Firehouse Subs, and I promise I'll make a connection here. Right?
Oh
Has
God,
anybody ever
yeah.
had Firehouse Subs? They're
Yes.
delicious, right? I know Daniel.
Yeah.
I know Daniel. How do you say it? Rosales Jr.? I know he's laughing. He likes Firehouse Subs. I'm going to take it back. When I first started making my first subs, my manager um, said, "Hey, man, I want you to make a sub. It's completely free. You can have whatever you want." And I
Mm,
looked at the menu. He said, "Study which one you like." I said, "I want the meatball sub." I said, "Okay, I'll teach you how to make it. I'm going to do it in front of you, and then I want you to take your time, and I want you to make the best meatball sub for you, and I want you to enjoy it."
mm,
And he showed me. He cut the bread, put the meatballs in, put a little bit of extra sauce, put the cheese on top, put a little red pepper flakes on the top, put it through the toaster, put it halfway back through the toaster so to get a little extra crispy on the top, but not two times, right? He almost burned his hand doing it. The glove got a little sticky, right? And then he watched me do it, and I took my time, a lot of time with that. And then he showed me how to cut it at a certain angle, how to place it on the mat, pickle next to it, and he said, "Go sit down and eat." And we sat down, and before I took my first bite, he said, "I want you to treat every sandwich that you make from now on as if you're going to eat it. And if you wouldn't eat it, don't send it out." And so that helped me a lot of ways in my career. That we'll take it back to final expense. If I wouldn't do something for my grandmother and I'm really happy about what I'm doing for my grandmother, it's the best thing for her, I
mm.
probably shouldn't do it. Does that make sense?
You shouldn't do it?
If it's not the best thing for the
Oh
client, it's
yeah,
not the best thing
not,
for my
not,
own
of
grandmother, I
course.
shouldn't
Yeah,
do
yeah, of
it,
course not. Yeah.
right?
No, no.
Treat it like it's your own grandmother, your own
Yeah.
grandfather. These are people and they need help,
Right.
you know?
Mm,
Sometimes we focus so much on making the sale and making the income that we forget that we're just dealing with people, man.
mm,
We're just dealing with people.
mm,
And so, when I'm talking to agents, why are you here? What's the plan? Make money,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Strong as a lot of.
What's the plan?
Yeah.
And I want people to make massive amounts of income, massive amounts of income. I'm all for those things. But when I look at it saying, you know who we do, you know who we service, right? Who are the people that we service? And you really, I just take it a little bit slower. You can talk about income all day long. You'll make money. But if you service the people properly and you really care about them, the money follows almost immediately. And I'll tell you a story about that. I sat with a client in the field with my younger brother. We were not training. I was just like, we were there for a meeting. And I was like, James, before we have our meeting at 2 o'clock, we had an 11 o'clock call. Last till 12. I said, before we have our 2 o'clock call, we're going to the field. We're going to make a sale. The first lady we door knocked, no appointments. I sat down with her in her car. She wouldn't have been in her house. And after I sat with her, I said, you're in a really good spot. Everything's good with your insurance policy. I don't think you should change. It's a really good policy that you have. And she looked at me kind of tilted sideways. She was like, let me introduce you to some people. And she knew I was a good guy just because I was doing the right thing. We made 3 sales that day from people that she walked us down to. And like, these are the insurance man. Like, you should get your insurance to them because they're good people. And because of that, it wasn't the lead got me to this one person because I cared. She got me to other people. That makes sense?
Yep. Yeah. She felt like she needed to provide value to you.
Correct. Because she
Right.
saw that I wasn't there to make the money. She was like, I believe in what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yes. 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 No doubt. Yeah. Something beautiful about that. It's tough to teach, man. It's tough to
It's
teach.
it it just comes with time.
Yeah.
And, if I look across here and maybe I'll speak directly to somebody or someone not, when we're in an environment like this, and we live in a world now where we have so many screens, our phones, and if we work in a virtual model, we've got 3 monitors. I've got a ginormous monitor in front of me, and I've got my Facebook on one side, I've got my Zoom on the other, I've got my Discord on the other, I've got, 3 other screens over there. It's so many things are coming our way, and it's hard to pay attention when things are being directed at you.
Mm.
And it's harder now than ever to listen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I appreciate about you is that when you and I speak, and right now it feels like me and you are speaking, and then other people might be watching. It looks like some people that
Oh
have their
yeah.
cameras on are on the phone. They're doing other things. They're not actually actively listening.
Yeah.
And the biggest part about sales is actively listening to the client,
Yeah.
is actively listening to what the person's telling you.
Mhm.
Because, and I'm going to give this quote that I heard from somebody.
Mhm.
Every lead that you talk to is an absolute laydown. And can I curse?
Yeah. Go ahead. Talk
If
your
you don't
shit.
fuck it up.
Yeah. Talk your shit. Go ahead.
Every lead is an absolute laydown if you don't fuck it up. Meaning the person that you're talking to saw interest in what it was, and they took time, whether it be super automated through Facebook, lead forms, or something that's a little bit faster, like an internet thing, or a direct mail lead, right? They took time because they were interested in what it was, and they know it's about insurance. They're not stupid. People we talk to aren't stupid. They know it's about insurance, and they want to talk to you. Inbound, they want to talk to you. It's an absolute laydown if you don't screw it up.
Hmm.
You just have to actively listen, and they will tell you exactly what you need to close that sale. They're going to give you the ammo. But
Hmm.
most agents are talking to be heard
Hmm.
versus listening.
Hmm. Yeah. That's the truth.
I don't know.
And
Could be the
and
play.
trickles into like their day-to-day conversation too, you know? Like they're having a conversation with someone. A lot of people they start to like they're thinking about what they're gonna say. I was watching some sort of podcast, so some lady was talking about this. She was
They're
like,
waiting to speak.
yes, yes, they're all waiting to speak. They're like waiting, they're thinking of what they need to say rather than like what the client is actually, what the person is saying. But it's like see, in this day and age, like you said, right? Like it's tougher than ever to be able to like pay attention, right? Attention like deficit disorder is like all-time high. So you're scrolling and all these things, right? It's very easy to like lose that human element that we all have that binds us together, which is that connectivity, right? But I mean, man, I hope that this sort of shines some light and gives people a little bit of insight as like how to go about those things. Like, um, what would you say? So like, what you think? How do you think you would teach people like start listening better? How? You just tell them like, just like what kind of frame? Because I'm sure you dealt with 19,000 agents. How can you teach? Because there's a lot of new agents that come in this business, right? And based off your story, from what I heard, is that you were obviously in the finance world. You were not consulting necessarily, but you were dealing with clients in some regard before you got into the insurance space. So you already had to like understand the importance of hearing people out. You ever work sales before insurance or no?
Um, the type of finance that I was in was
Uh,
not the finance that people think. I was the guy that you would go to when you couldn't get a loan at a bank, but you didn't want to go to a title
uh,
company. To make sense?
Shark, you're a
So
shark, loan shark. So you
yeah,
just
it
like to,
wasn't good loans for people. It was canned loans, matrix matrix box lending. I was working with people that had a 620 to 670 credit score, right? And a lot of times they were senior citizens on a fixed
uh,
income, right?
that works.
And so, but a lot of my job was we'd make the loans and then, they would, maybe miss a payment or miss a couple payments. And my job was to go out, guess what? Go out and see them in the
So,
field, door knock them, collect a check, or bring them back to my office and have a full conversation with them. And I would listen to them of why they were having their problems or why they couldn't make their payments and bills. And then, I thought my job was to help them get back on track and then fix their credit. What I found out I was doing is I was really just keeping them impoverished by keeping them, rolling their debt over and over. Once they get make a couple payments, oh, you have equity in your loan, let's start the loan over. It was horrible business practice, but what I did learn was how to talk to a lot of people and listen to what they had going on.
mm,
And I would make copious notes of what they had going on so I could reflect back on it. One, if I ever talked to them again,
mm,
you know, uh, but But in reality, if you really listen to somebody and I don't want to say care about them, but you you want to make sure that they are understood and heard during the conversation.
right.
Um, they will feel it from you, if that makes sense.
No doubt. This also contributes to like retention as a whole too, which is kind of what I want to get into in terms of like objectives here, right? Because like as we already know, retention is a huge issue in the insurance world, right? And like from your experience, what are some common mistakes you'd say that agents make that cost them long-term clients, and like how do you think we can sort of correct that?
Um, couple things that I will bring up. One is overselling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, we're working with people who are impoverished people.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to sell them a $200 plan.
Mm.
There's such a
Be
thing as overselling, Dr. Matthew?
Yeah, because when that person opens up their checkbook or opens up their statement every day or every week or every month that they get it, and bills are tight, bills are tighter than they've ever been, right?
Mm-hmm.
They value their insurance, okay, a
Mm-hmm.
lot. They value their insurance a lot because they have it, and again, they believe in insurance because it's the only chance that these people have the opportunity to pass down an immediate uh, income to somebody else. They don't have 401ks. They don't have annuities. They don't have massive amounts of cash laying around. So to leave $15,000, $25,000 is a sweet deal to them. They're pumped, right? Um, but when you are entering into their pocketbook and they make $1,000 a month and you're taking 20% of that, they're gonna go, well, maybe I don't need this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that a big problem in the telesales world it also happens in the field as well, but it happens less, is there's not a lot of understanding what they currently have. A lot of people are just trying to add to.
Hmm.
And it's not first in, first out in the insurance space.
I'm gonna cut you off. You said it's not about what they currently have, it's about add to. That's the common theme that you're seeing.
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
lot of people, I would say a lot of telesales agents are just trying to add on insurance,
yeah.
right? And trying to tack on more. And there's a reason for that, right? It's hard to get somebody to tell you what they currently have and to review those current things. And it takes time, right?
Yes.
And we live in a world now, Jace Collins, where we value our time so much and we're talking about opportunity cost. And, when someone has something, they tell you they have something, it doesn't
Mhm.
mean it's good. Um, they could have borrowed money on their life insurance policy. They could have, it could be a UL going underneath. It could be a term policy expiring. And
Mhm.
a lot of agents don't take the time to review those current things and figure out what's good or bad about them.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
when you're adding to coverage and now you're the second insurance policy on that person's docket, and yours is probably going to be more because you're the second one in, right? You're going to be the first one out
Yeah.
when times really get tough.
Yeah.
And when their kids are coming by to them and talking to them and saying, "Hey, why don't you have any money? Let's look at your thing." Oh, what is that?
Mhm.
Americo? No, no, no. We're out of there. Goodbye. Call them. And it happens so much, a lot. I would say the other thing is, and this is for everybody, field or phone. I don't care who you are. When you get an NSF notification, when you get a client didn't make their payment notification, it doesn't mean they didn't want their coverage. It just means that you should call that client and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
I would say 90% of the time, because agents are so focused on making the new sale that they're not following up with what they currently have, that they're losing a lot of business. 90% of the time,
Mhm.
they're they've switched bank accounts or something happened. But the agent's thought process is that person's canceling. They don't want the business. I'm not going to even call.
Mhm.
It happens
Mhm.
all the time.
Understand, yeah.
And it sucks because that person's been paying you for, or, been paying on a policy for 4 months, 5 months.
Mhm.
They paid $800 and you don't have the common courtesy. Here's the important part, guys. I'm going to say it once. I'm going to say it in the chat too. You got an advance. You got an advance
Yes. The loan.
service that client
Yes.
at a minimum
Mhm.
for the next year, a bare minimum for the next year. But you also get trailing commissions.
Mhm.
The insurance company's paying you up front to take care of that client. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
If you didn't care about it, go as earned. But the insurance company's paying you way up front, normally 6 months, 9 months in advance to service that person. So service them and give them a call
Yeah.
and ask them what's going on. How can we help?
Mhm.
Maybe it was too much of a premium. Maybe we should lower it for you.
Mhm.
But again, agents are just focused on the new sale. They're not worried about, you know, where that person's at.
Yeah.
Um, there's a couple other things that I would say that go into retention.
Yeah.
There's no, I think there's some automated thank you text and emails that go out.
Yes.
And I posted about it in a chat, or I think in a Discord because someone was asking me. I think it was Elijah, maybe.
Mhm.
Can't remember. Um, write a handwritten letter.
Hmm. Okay.
It doesn't even have to be that good. You can go to Amazon right now. I'm going to do it while we're on the kill. Amazon. I can't spell. I dropped out of high school 3 times. Thank you cards. I got a thank you card right here, and you can buy 48 cards for $11.
48 cards for them.
There's tons of them on Amazon, right? And get them shipped to your house. How many sales are people making a week? Three or four, five, six? I mean, if you're Justin Skolrod or whoever did 56,000, you're obviously doing a lot more. Um, take it a part of your week on Friday for, I don't know, hear me out, 45 minutes an hour to handwrite a thank you card to that person saying,
Mm.
hey, thanks for allowing me to help you with your final expenses. It doesn't have to say how much the premium is going to be and all that stuff. I appreciate the time we spent. I can't wait to hear about Fido running in the backyard because I know we talked about that. Letting them know that you listened, the important part is you listened to who they were.
Mhm.
And if they have a dog, send them a dog treat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If they have a dog, ask their dog's birthday. Send their dog a birthday card.
Mm.
Clients love that stuff.
Yeah.
But the time that you took to write it means more to the client than anything.
Mhm.
Again, it costs you $2 and some time
Yeah.
to say thank you for helping me make 800, $900 or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty worth it.
No doubt.
And our clients aren't getting stuff like that.
No doubt. And to add to that, it can also, not trying to say that, you do that for a check per se, but it's all the better if they come back to you and they say, hey, I actually meant to call you because I needed more coverage. So let me know what you think about this. Last week was Mother's Day, right? So let me know what you think of this idea. Maybe you already did this too, probably knowing you. Sent a talk to some of the staff, scheduled a Mother's Day text to go out to every client. I had some of the agents do it too.
There's like just sent out like a mass text to every person who's in the book of business. One of these ladies called me back and she set up an appointment for later this month because she said that she wanted to add to her policy. But the responses that came like were just insane. Like some people are like scared. I feel like some people are scared to send those things because they think the client's gonna like cancel or like they say, "Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me about this. I don't want this anymore." Or something like that, you know? But in reality, the kind of responses I got were insane. Like people were so grateful. They appreciated it. Some people were sending like long, lengthy paragraphs with like prayers. It's crazy. But, what do you think of that? Good idea, bad idea, not good idea, what?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll give you one different.
Tell
Have
me,
you
tell
ever
me.
heard of a ringless voicemail?
Ringless voicemail.
It should be
Oh.
through, you should be able to do it through your
Oh
CRM.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if
yeah.
it's still a thing,
Okay.
right? So what I did is I went to mp3cut.net.
Oh,
I'm gonna,
that
I'm
is.
gonna write this down for people that want to do it or try it. And there's other recording softwares. This is the one I know. mp3cut.net. You can record yourself singing happy birthday at the top of your lungs, and you can save it.
Hmm.
And on that person's birthday, you send them a ringless voicemail. Now to them, they missed your call. And then on their voicemail from their agent, all they got was a happy birthday.
Hmm.
Now, you don't have to say happy birthday, Rachel Nugent, right? You're keeping it general.
Hmm.
You could just sing happy birthday one
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
And on every person's birthday, they're
Hmm.
getting a thing. You'll get calls back from your clients saying, thank you so much. And they're going to say these things. I was just thinking about you.
Hmm.
I want you to talk to so and so.
Hmm. There you go. Yeah.
Try it.
Look, so let me ask you this too. I know we've talked about a lot of, important things right now. We talked about care. We talked about retention. We talked about, obviously your experience. Do you have any data? Like, do we have like any like sort of key metrics that people can understand to sort of bring weight to like these key points here? Because I think, people, the way that, humans are as a whole is like we're driven by numbers, right? Like at least hopefully most people. I think hopefully people in the Zoom, we're driven by numbers. So like, do you have like any sort of data by chance to sort of like explain like maybe retention, or kind of returns you've got in terms of referrals or anything like that by chance?
For
No.
me personally, no, I don't really track those numbers for myself from a retention standpoint because I helped build a retention department in my previous
Yes. Yes.
organization.
Yes.
Um, the persistency or the retention went up by 12% over a 3-month period.
Mhm.
Um, and it went up 15% over a 6-month period.
That's crazy.
Now, it doesn't seem like a whole lot, right?
Mm.
But
Over time.
a lot of people, it's a lot of money um, that you're saving.
Mhm.
A
Mhm.
lot of money that you're saving.
No doubt.
And more importantly, your clients are still have the coverage.
Mhm. No doubt.
Doing thank you cards, um, Elijah, doing thank you cards, birthday voicemails to answer your question.
Mhm.
Both of those things are good.
Yeah.
And then in the space that I was really into, we were in the Medicare space.
Mhm.
So you know, people would get new plans. This is maybe to not derail this conversation, but people would get plans, and the 5 Ds to disenrollment or 4 Ds to disenrollment were doctors, drugs, dentists, and didn't know.
Doctors, drugs, dentists, and didn't know. Okay.
Right. So, my job or my team's job was to make sure that people knew what they just got with their new policy and they
Mm.
understood it. We got them to use their benefits as soon as possible. And the statistical likelihood of somebody leaving their benefits if they used them right after they got them went down significantly,
Mm.
absolutely significantly. And so those little key touch points of just reaching out, getting on the conversation with them, because the one thing that I'll do every single time if I run into anybody's policy is I'm going to say, when's the last time you talked to your agent? You know what the majority of people are going to say?
It's been years.
Been years since they sold me the policy.
Yeah.
You know how much easier it is for me with someone in the field to replace that?
Take it. Oh yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
It's game over.
It's wraps. Come here.
Now, if they're in a good policy, I'm going to tell them.
Yeah.
True Social Security billing for final expense retention.
Okay,
I,
Elijah, we need to open it up for Q&A, buddy.
yeah, for sure. It's important, um, especially if you know your clients. Ask your clients what's it like for you when you get paid. Kind of feel them out. I've sold a lot of carriers that don't do Social Security, billing as their primary thing, and I still haven't had a problem. But I would say that it is important that if someone does, if someone is on Social Security, that you either line them up for the first, the third, the second, or third, fourth Wednesday of the month.
Hmm. Huge. Yeah, and that's that. Yeah, you have to. You literally have to. Because these people, when you ask them questions, like, and even I'm right now, I'm running Facebook too. Right? You gotta ask them those questions. Like, you ask like affordability. Like, like, if this were to hypothetically draft today, would those funds be in the account? No. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we're not sending this draft here. When do you get paid? Or when does Social Security come in? Cool, we're doing it like that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, Dr. Matthew, I appreciate you greatly for everything. I think we're pretty much cut for time. We need to do this, if it's okay with you. Can we please do a part two? Please? Please,
I
let's
don't
do
know.
it.
Does anybody else want to do a part two?
Please, yo,
I
drop the one in the chat if you guys want a part two out of Dr. Matthew. We need that. We need that because we have so much to talk about. We've talked about half of like what the plan to talk to you about. Look at the people. They're losing their minds right now. Look at this. We needed a part two out of you, please. Because now we need to talk about like, in terms of scale, in terms of like CRM, in terms of actual marketing, like, information. Like we need to talk about that. So like that would be like part two of like the sequel to what we have been able to accomplish today. Look at this. You're gonna say no to all these beautiful people? You care about people so much. Don't do this to us, please.
Of course I'll do a part two.
Come here with open hands, Dr. Matthew. All we ask is just give us your brain, please. Respectfully.
Yeah. I'm happy. I'm happy to. I'm happy to give out what I have learned, and I have been given as well, as long as I have a couple rules. One, you can learn all the shit in the world that you want. If you don't practice it, you will lose it.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that I'm telling you are things that I have done and practiced a lot. I'm telling you from experience of doing it a lot. So I'm happy to continue to talk. I talk all day long. I normally do talk all day long to people about what I know how to do and all these other things. I only ask that if you take some of this in, that you utilize it and try some of the things that I'm telling you to do, not just take it down, get excited about, some random goofy white guy from Lower Arkansas talking about final expense, right? It's really easy to laugh at me. I'm easy to laugh at. I got a missing tooth. See, I can laugh at myself, but what I want for you guys is for you to learn what I'm telling you and apply it and exercise it to help you, to help your clients. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll
Well,
meet you as far as you want to be met,
yeah. We'll have data for you on that the next time we do it.
for
Like
sure.
we'll have like people come up and like give like case studies and testimonials of like and tears will be shed and all that for like everything that you've talked to us about, right? So
Yeah.
that's rule number one. What's the next rule? Any other rules?
And I think it was like 1 and 2 blended in together. So yeah, just take it. Just I'm happy to do it. Just take it and apply it. But two, maybe use it for good.
Yes.
Sometimes sometimes I drop knowledge of like what to say for a rebuttal,
Mhm.
that are carefully constructed conversational pieces that puts you in the brain jiu-jitsu that we have. And for those that don't know what brain jiu-jitsu is every conversation that we have, everybody's trying to control the conversation and they're waiting to speak, so they want to take
Yes.
control. But when I articulate rebuttals with certain clients, I'll say certain things that are carefully constructed, that have taken me years to learn how to say properly, that will put you in a position to sell. I just ask that you do these things for good and that you're doing it for the right reasons, not just to make yourself.